Welcome to a Foundational Competency module presented by the New Hampshire Behavioral Health Workforce Development Network. This module will provide an overview of multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, with an emphasis on behavioral support. The mission of the New Hampshire Children's Behavioral Health Workforce Development Network is to build a sustainable infrastructure for the professional development of the children's behavioral health workforce, based upon the core competencies and infused with the system of care core values and guiding principles. This multi-tiered systems of supports overview is one of a series of modules that are designed to support the development of core competencies in the children's behavioral health workforce. The multi-tiered systems of supports model is just like a response to intervention or RTI framework. It utilizes a three-tiered system, a continuum for social, emotional, and behavioral support. And it also incorporates a decision-making model that's strategic at all three tiers. First, by using data to identify concerns and needs, and then prioritizing those concerns and setting goals, then thoughtfully selecting effective strategies to address those concerns, assuring the readiness of the system to implement the strategies, and then, of course, implementing those strategies with fidelity, and then assessing both the fidelity of implementation of the strategies and the impact or effectiveness of those strategies. Lastly, we continuously monitor strategies to assure that we are sustaining effective strategies and that ineffective strategies are reviewed for either discontinuation or adaptation. The tiered framework in a multi-tiered continuum operates like a filter. If we are effective at implementing Tier 1 classroom and school-wide strategies for behavioral and academic support, we give ourselves the best chance that as few students as possible will require Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports to be successful socially, emotionally, behaviorally, and academically. If we systematically address concerns early through targeted interventions at Tier 2, we may also preempt the need for more intensive and individualized supports at Tier 3 for some students. Ultimately, if the systems and practices are effective at Tier 1 and Tier 2, only children with intensive and chronic needs will require the individualization provided at Tier 3. So let's address with some greater specificity the three tiers of social, emotional, and behavioral support, with the understanding that Tier 1 refers to school-wide and classroom supports for all children. Tier 2 refers to targeted group supports for some children, those who concern us and who are at risk for developing bigger concerns. And Tier 3, highly individualized supports provided for students with intensive social, emotional, behavioral, or academic needs. So let's start with Tier 1, school-wide systems, practices, and data. The first big idea in developing Tier 1 multi-tiered systems of support is the idea of strategic prevention. The idea behind prevention is to develop the systems, strategies, and practices that most effectively prevent social, emotional, behavioral, and academic concerns. So Tier 1 prevention really begins with effective teaching. Not only effectively teaching academics, but also effectively teaching expected social behaviors. And for this we utilize the science of teaching, an effective teaching model that begins with engaging instruction, and then allows opportunities for practice, not just hearing the information, but also doing what's expected. Then, in the process, providing effective feedback, both to encourage positive behavior by noticing the desired behavior, in fact, establishing a culture in which desired behavior are noticed, and also correcting incorrect behavior by demonstrating or reteaching the desired behavior. And then, as in any good process, assessing the fidelity of implementation of the instruction and practices that were involved in the teaching, and assessing the effectiveness or the impact of the strategies used. Establishing positive culture and using Tier 1 practices and systems to promote positive behavior and to optimally prevent concerns begins with common language and a set of common understandings. In a multi-tiered behavioral support model, this begins with effectively teaching the big values, the big expectations, the big themes, and any common curriculum that the school has adopted. In a Tier 1 prevention model, specific behaviors and behavioral routines are well taught, are reinforced, and are sustained by all staff. The behaviors and routines that are taught should be taught and practiced with fidelity, with plans for continuous monitoring of the effectiveness of the implementation. Booster teaching or reteaching should occur, and that should happen individually with students, by classrooms when needed, and by whole school when that's indicated by the data. Even with great efforts at prevention, we all know that we have to respond to behavioral concerns. And one of the big ideas for multi-tiered systems of support is to be strategic in how we respond to concerns when they happen. So effective implementation organizes systems and practices to effectively respond to social, emotional, and behavioral concerns. An effective response system includes the following features: clear behavioral definitions that are used and implemented with fidelity by all staff in major behavior and minor behavior categories. A consistent process and set of strategies for responding to behavioral concerns when they occur. An efficient data referral form for when major behaviors occur. A commitment by all staff to accurate data gathering, and a commitment to regularly review data and use the data for decision making. Regular review of accurately gathered school-wide data allows a Tier 1 team to assess the effectiveness of well-implemented strategies and systems, and also to identify concerns based on variables such as location, type of concerning behavior, or time of day, using an effective information system like SWIS, the School-Wide Information System, will allow a Tier 1 team to look at data over time. Now let's briefly look at Tier 2 targeted systems, practices, and data. Once a school has effectively identified students for whom Tier 1 supports alone are not enough, It's important to strategically match prevalent types of student concerns with interventions that are designed to build skills and/or to address the function of the behavioral concern. At Tier 2, one key intervention delivery method occurs through targeted group interventions, meaning that small groups of students with common concerns receive typically short-term instruction and practice that is intended to boost social, emotional, academic, or executive functioning skills. It's important that the matching of students to group supports occurs efficiently, that the skills taught are relevant and that they're taught effectively, that data are used to evidence progress, and that we address the student needs early. Tier 2 interventions, including group interventions, should address the most prevalent student concerns found in the at-risk population. In many schools, this results in an array of interventions and supports at Tier 2. Examples of the types of interventions often seen at Tier 2 include check-in, check-out programs, student mentoring programs, groups that address specific social skills, groups that address emotional regulation skills, including strengthening stress awareness and stress management, and supports and interventions that address academic skills. An important concept in developing an effective continuum of social, emotional, and behavioral support is that whatever is taught and practiced in Tier 2 should be present or alive in Tier 1. In other words, whatever is learned or boosted in Tier 2 interventions needs to be practiced in the regular daily life of the student. Therefore, interventions at Tier 2 are typically most effective when they build off of practices that are already universally practiced at Tier 1. For example, if a school practices a specific problem-solving methodology for all students, or uses a specific curriculum to address stress awareness, for example, Tier 2 interventions should provide a boost of instruction or practice using the same language and concepts that are already being universally implemented. Likewise, if a new type of strategy is taught uniquely through a Tier 2 intervention, it is most effective if classroom teachers find opportunities to support the application of the possible new skill throughout the school day. As with school-wide data, Tier 2 data should provide valuable information that speaks to both the fidelity of implementation of Tier 2 practices, as well as the impact or effectiveness of the intervention. Next, let's briefly look at Tier 3 intensive systems and practices. Effective Tier 3 systems and practices begins with the organization of a Tier 3 systems team who help to organize, develop, and implement Tier 3 systems and practices. An effective school-based nomination and activation system helps to guide the development of individual teams for each student with intensive support needs. The Tier 3 systems team assures the knowledge, the skills, and the practices are in place to effectively respond to behavioral emotional escalation, as well as to prevent it as much as possible. This also includes effective crisis response. Effective Tier 3 systems and practices emphasize the importance of engaging effectively with families of children with intensive needs. Tier 3 systems team assures that intensive functional behavioral assessments are accessible, and that those assessments are informing the development of effective behavioral support plans. Tier 3 systems also coordinate a facilitated referral process to community-based supports. That includes mental health supports, and also coordinate the development of and implementation of a multidisciplinary problem-solving team to help solve complex and multi-systems issues. Lastly, the Tier 3 systems team assures that practices for family and person-centered planning are in place. Family-driven high-fidelity wraparound and the Renew process for teens are examples of evidence-based family and person-centered planning processes. Over the years, many people have contributed to the identification and development of the features of multi-tiered systems of support in New Hampshire. And I'd like to thank just a few of those people. And of course, I'd like to thank you for watching this overview today. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.